Thank you for making the time to receive this operational briefing on the ongoing seasonal maintenance operations at the city's designated outdoor sheltering site, known to us as OS4. In the spring of 2019, the city adopted a model to designate a singular public space as a sole authorized location for those sheltering outdoors experiencing homelessness. And since the spring of 2021, the city property at 735 Waddell Place has served as that designated space. In the spring of 2022, the city saw a significant increase in the number of those sheltering outdoors and readjusted our models accordingly. And in the fall of 2022, we transitioned from a daily decampment approach at OS4 to instead permitting daytime sheltering, as well as we sought to balance the best of limited resources and manage the impact across the community and neighborhoods simultaneously. As part of this transition, we adopted a model where a team led by Bylaw Services with support of the RCMP and various other governmental agencies and not-for-profit community partners would work with those out at OS4 to decamp on a periodic basis so the site could be rehabilitated in the interest of maintaining a reasonable sense of health, safety, and security for those at the site and the greater surrounding community, including businesses and residential neighborhoods. Additionally, the team would undertake wholesale spring and fall seasonal maintenance efforts to reset the site after a protracted period of sheltering in situ. Throughout this, we have adapted our approach to meet the emergent operational demands, and the city, as well as our partners, have dedicated a great deal of effort and resources into not only ensuring the site is managed as best as reasonable as possible for the sake of those using the site, but also for the rest of the community as we seek to manage the highly visible impacts often associated with chronic homelessness elsewhere across the city. As winter is now past, it is time for the spring 25 maintenance operation and set the conditions for the spring and summer. This operation started this morning, coordinated and led by Community Safety and Bylaw Services, again with the support from the RCMP, Kelowna Fire Department, other governmental departments, and not-for-profit community partners. In doing so, we are continuing to adapt to a changing landscape, and we are employing additional measures to ensure the safety for all staying at and those servicing the site at city expense. We have heard from those staying at the site, and also from those who have refused to stay at the site from across the city, that they have not felt safe at times due to external criminal activity and other on-site dynamics, including violence between site users that take place when security or enforcement personnel are not present. As such, we have brought on 24/7 security and put additional fencing at either end of the site. We have done this to demonstrate to those using the site that we are continuing to take their own personal security and safety seriously. That is, taking measures to prevent those criminal elements from imposing on them throughout the day and night, and from those taking advantage of the most vulnerable within the site itself. From the perspective of all agencies serving the site, from city crews to enforcement, from health to housing, from registered not-for-profits to utilities personnel, the fencing and on-site security will provide an additional measure to keep our own staff safe so they can do all the work that needs to be done. Protracted encampments bring a host of other characteristics that must be addressed from time to time. This includes, but is not limited to, the accumulation of excess material and refuse, expansion of site footprints to the point where it's unsafe for enforcement and first responders to reasonably and adequately ensure safety of themselves and others, and a host of other associated risks. As part of this spring maintenance operation, as has been the case in the past, teams will work with community partners and those using the site to come to a more reasonable state, all the while respecting personal belongings of value and ensuring we are not creating barriers to indoor sheltering or other housing options. It should go without saying that items that are prohibited include things such as improvised weapons, replica firearms, actual firearms, and etc. Those items will be immediately confiscated. By the end of this week, we expect to see the site rehabilitated in a much better state for those using the site as well as the surrounding community. And the city has also been fortunate to have a partner in BC Housing. Last year's deployment of 120 rapid safety net housing options and the upcoming opening of Appaloosa that will see an additional 60 spaces is making an impact to our city. and we expect to see a commensurate reduction as we do our best to enable the transition to indoor options as part of our ongoing commitment as a community partner. It is important to note that those using the site for sheltering are able to come and go as they like, and casework and other services will still be provided throughout. However, the designated area will not be accessible to the general public. It is a no trespass area. And we ask the public to respect this work and not impede something which is already very difficult and disruptive as it is. The fencing that is being employed is fully open facing, and the work that we're all doing is transparent. As well, traffic will be temporarily diverted from that section of the rail trail, and barriers and signage are being placed accordingly to both ensure the operations are not disrupted, but also to provide the outdoor sheltering community with a measure of dignity and respect during this time. As I close, I'll say this. The work being undertaken by the team is extremely challenging and complex work. All parties represented have varying mandates, some of which are on polar opposites of each other, but are coming together, and we are working in tandem, finding the overlap to work together to serve our city in the most balanced and reasonable way we can, given the legal and statutory resources available. We are leveraging lessons learned, not only from here, but from across the province and country. We are exercising compassion and employing trauma-informed practices wherever possible. And although we are not perfect in what we do, I am extremely proud of the work being done by and for the sake of our city. I also want to offer our appreciation for the collaboration of all our partners as they come alongside the work for the sake of the work. You have earned and deserve our respect and that of the community. And in the interest of transparency, we will continue to provide operational updates periodically as the need arises. Thank you for your attention. I'm now prepared to answer some questions. Claudia.
Kevin, you mentioned that you, by the end of this week, that site should be, you used the word rehabilitated. What does that exactly mean? Are you minimizing the footprint of Tent City? Are you dismantling it? What exactly are you doing?
Yeah, in the interest of trying to rehabilitate the site, it is as it's been in the past. So we are trying to, again, ensure that the ground is cleared, it is re-raked, and the site is reset, in the interest of ensuring that it can be best used by the users themselves.
And in the process, you are blocking the public. What do you tell the public who say the rail trail is a public passageway?
Well, we are restricting movement along that section of the rail trail for the reasons I just described. We want to provide a measure of dignity and respect to those that are using the site while the operation is going, and is what is a very disruptive process.
And just final question before others, I know others have questions. We understand that there were at least two arrests made this morning at the site. A dog was seized. Why is that?
I don't have those details at this time.
Speaking of dignity and respect, were people informed that this would be happening before it did?
There is socialization that the spring cleaning is coming, as has happened over the last little while, but we did not disclose the specific time of it, nor do we provide written notice due to some of the disruptive activities that have happened over the last couple of weeks.
Could you describe what those disruptive activities are?
Well, I believe they've been in mainstream media as well, but I also don't intend to give a platform to that conversation.
Kevin, can you speak to the protests that have been going on? I know there's been some statements that have been made that Bylaw has refuted in terms of aggression and things of that nature, and I think that protesters are actually out here right now trying to get into this media press conference. Can you just speak to, you mentioned that there's going to be some transparency, and I know people will feel that if they're not allowed in, they may not be privy to what's going on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So that is the reason why we have the fencing, the nature of fencing that we do up there, so that everything that we are doing can be seen, and respected by all. With respect to, what has happened in the past, we do respect the right of all people to protest. It's a constitutional right, absolutely. But what is not acceptable is the very disrespectful disruption in government offices, for which we don't condone whatsoever. And for that, in response to that, we did offer that same group an opportunity to submit and are engaged respectfully in writing, for which was not taken. With respect to what happened at the site, I can say that with absolution, that one site that was interfered with as far as the cleaning was going, that cleaning was actually at the request of the former occupant of that site. And when Yeah, and when that information was disclosed, it was allowed to proceed. However, during that same event, there was an individual that was supposed to go to hospital for some very important treatment, and that person was not able to get to hospital because crews could not get to them during that event. So we just do want to be cognizant that although we respect, the right and welcome the protest and the meaningful engagement in a respectful way. The impeding of work on site for the sake of those using the site specifically, requires a measured response.
Castanet has done stories in the past reporting on some criminal activity, some thefts around different residents, and then bringing those items back into the rail trail. Is it fair to say that part of the reason for the gate is just due to a fear of potential public safety and jeopardization of that?
No, it is first and foremost for the safety of our staff and for the safety of the site users. Absolutely. And again, the nature and the duration of the fencing will completely depend on the situation as it evolves. But it is our intent to stabilize the site so that it can be best used by those using the site and support the impact of the neighboring community.
Kevin, you stabilize the site. The city stabilizes the site every spring. You do a spring cleaning. That is nothing new. What's different this year, it just seems to be more intense with the fencing. We were down there today. There's a lot of authorities there. Why is it to this degree this year compared to last year's? What's the difference this year?
Honestly, it is the amount of disruption that we've had in our operations of late. So putting those measures into place to, again, minimize the disruption for the sake of those using the site is of our utmost concern. And then number two is the safety of our staff in doing that work. And again, minimizing the duration of time that the work needs to take is also part of that. So,
what do you mean by disruption?
Well, for exactly what was just brought up. So when there is impeding of the work that protracts the time that it takes to get the work done, which we do again alongside all our not-for-profit partners and community partners out there as well, it protracts what is a disruptive process that at the end of the day actually causes harm to those using the site.
Will this now be a regular occurrence then to gate off the entire area and conduct these activities the way they're being
not necessarily, Ken. No. Again, sort of the operational demands will dictate at the time.
This disruption that you're talking about, is that residents on the rail trail, or is that people outside of the living on the rail trail and protesters that you're speaking about?
Predominantly the events that have interfered with our work of late.
What kind of events?
Well, I think we just spoke about that as well.
How many people are being displaced today, and will the same amount of people be able to move back there in a week when it's rehabilitated?
Well, there's no intent to displace anyone. So again, as we have done in the past, we ask and work with people to move across the rail trail to get stuff set up there while the ground is all being re-prepared on the other side.
Oh, so they're not having their stuff taken, it's just...
No, again, like as I said, the excess material and refuse, and we will work with our community partners to facilitate that as reasonably as possible.
What is the count of people in there at this point?
The latest count is approximately between 80 to 90.
Are there enough shelter beds for those people if that were to transition?
No, and that's in fact why the city has a legal obligation to provide public space for outdoor shelter.
Sorry, go ahead.
And once those shelter beds come in line, or if there are 80 people, 80 more beds that come, because there's 60.
There's 60 on the
coming,
way.
right?
Yeah.
What happens then?
Well, again, that's a BC Housing late conversation with the community access amongst community partners to determine who is most suitable for that sheltering. But we do expect to see, as part of a shelter flow model, that is those, whether they come for shelter or go direct to housing, that there will be a reduction in the number of those people that are required to shelter outdoors as well.
So the footprint will start to reduce in the days, weeks, months ahead?
The numbers sheltering outdoors writ large across the city will reduce. We do expect to see, as we did with both Trailside and Step Place, to see a reduction out of OS4 as well.
Kevin, can you speak to, we know in past, someone that's been a disruption on the rail trail living there has had a ban for, say, 48 hours, and then they're allowed back in. Is that still going to be happening? And if someone continues to be a problem down there, is there a point where eventually they may not be allowed to live down there?
Yeah, there is a spectrum of enforcement that we work with, of course, and that involves not only us as Bylaw, but the RCMP as well. The RCMP, they do handle all criminal matters, and we absolutely support them in the work they need to do.
Do we know how many shelter spaces are available at this time?
I'll defer to social development at this time. I think the number is 276 for emergency shelter, around there, plus or minus.
Okay, and how many of those spaces would still be available, or are they all?
Yeah, they've been operating at anywhere from 90 to 95 plus capacity, depending on the day and the weather.
Can you speak to the type of environment down there? Often when Bylaw and our CMP are down there trying to move along somebody or do their job in terms of cleaning, what is the environment like? Is there a little bit of hostility or?
There can be. It's like I said, it is complex and challenging work. We do try to exercise, take a compassionate approach to enforcement wherever and whenever possible. But at the same time, there are reasonable limits to that, and we will, again, work with our partners, whether it's community partners or police, to escalate along the spectrum of enforcement if that's warranted. But it is absolutely a last resort.
Is the culture around that space changing then?
I think the culture, around the space, it ebbs and flows seasonally, week to week, depending what's going on, weather, the myriad of factors that influence that.
And what's it like right now?
Well, I think everybody's coming out of winter. I think everybody's tired. I think I do believe that there is some concern for personal safety and security on the site. And we've heard that directly from people that are using the site as well, to include as recent as yesterday. And that in itself creates an environment where there's some tension.
Do you expect anyone to be brought into involuntary care through the process that we're seeing?
That is far out of my scope. Okay, to determine. I don't. That is a process that is 100% out of enforcement hands. And again, if required, the RCMP will help with that. But as far as bylaw and the city is concerned, we have no say in that process.
Are you aware of it going on though? In parallel with what you're doing?
I'm aware that the health system and the judiciary system are actively engaged in that, but I am not aware of any specific cases, nor do I have access to any of that confidential information.
Kevin, how has the site changed? What changes have you observed since it first opened?
Well, when I came on the scene in October 21, there were approximately 30 people sheltering outdoors that we counted as far as a conservative estimate on a daily basis in Bylaw Services. We are currently now, the conservative estimate is over 300. So we've experienced a tenfold increase in those that we are working with and sheltering outdoors alone. That in and of itself, again, precipitated the changes in how we adapted our operating model from a daily decampment back in 2021 to persistent camping for the last couple of years at the site.
From what you know, are you seeing people coming from, let's say, Vancouver to then come to the Kelowna area and hang out along the rail trail? Is it residents here in Kelowna that are? Is there a population coming from other areas?
I think it's all of the above, frankly, and there's an element of that. Kelowna is a transitory hub, absolutely, and I think we experience that just as we do anywhere else.
You talked a lot about safety for city staff. Has any staff member within the city been harmed or injured in any way
Yes.
in operations recently?
Not recently, but yes, there have been injuries in the past.
When you reference that concern for personal safety as of yesterday, was that someone who lives there is
Correct.
afraid of someone else who lives there?
Yes, and indicated that they hope that there's some change at the site and how it's being operated. And that's rhetoric that we've heard throughout from individuals.
So what changes are you making specifically to operations there?
Well, right now we're actually just worried about, again, getting the ground reset, reducing some of the material that's there. As you've seen, there are some massive structures that are out there, and it is 100% unsafe for first responders to get in there in the case of things like tent fires, for which we've seen a number of. And it is absolutely, our intent to get those structures reduced to a point where it's reasonable, that it's safe for first responders to go in and serve the community when they need to.
Over the years, residents of Tent City have asked for things like fire extinguishers. Is that something that the city can provide?
And we have in the past. And when we do attend, we have extinguishers in every vehicle as well as naloxone or Narcan. and try to serve as best we can with that as well. There have been fire extinguishers provided in the past, and in some occasions they have not been used for their intended purpose.
And so do you foresee an end to this outdoor sheltering space?
I think everybody would like to see an end to the requirement for outdoor sheltering writ large, but it is a highly complex and probably the most complex social matter that we're going to wrestle with for this generation. We're very grateful and proud to be a part of it. Like I said, we are doing the best that we can. It's not ideal, and we are all subject to criticism in that. I just always do invite those to come alongside the collaborative group that is already doing that, as opposed to working against. Again, we are happy to receive any meaningful and respectful feedback in how we do the work, and just really want to be really careful about and thoughtful about how we do that, and not polarize a community which is already polarized on this issue. Those that are sheltering outdoors are 100% part of our community, and our team is out there working with them every day, 365 days a year, and doing the best that they can for the sake of the whole community, which includes them. And it is very arduous work, and it's very heart-wrenching work. And I can tell you that whether you wear a uniform or not, the load for that is shared. And my heart goes out to our team and to the rest of the team that's out there doing the work together.